With the departure of John Bolton, President Donald Trump is now on his fourth national security advisor in 3 years. For perspective on this, I spoke with political consultant Anthony Cignoli and Massachusetts State Senator Adam Hinds. Last April, Hinds told Connecting Point he was very concerned about Bolton's hardline positions and the negative impact it could have on foreign policy. Earlier today, I asked him if his concerns were misplaced.
No, it seems they were proven, because at the time, what we were talking about is John Bolton's interventionist approach and instincts kind of contrasting with where we were not only globally, but even with this administration. And so we've kind of seen that. On the one hand, Trump has been isolationist, I think, by instinct, and John Bolton has always been pushing the envelope, whether it was an attack on Iran earlier this summer or in Venezuela, in a number of areas where they just didn't seem to see eye to eye.
Tony Cignoli, you are a political consultant, and I know you deal with a lot of Democrats, a lot of liberals, but what are we hearing from Republicans about this move? Whether he was, fired or resigned, we can go back and forth on. We'll leave that for others. What are you hearing from Republicans about the fact that John Bolton's out?
There's the party line, if there even is a party anymore on the Republican side, and that's that, gosh, golly gee whiz, it's the president's person, he's got to be comfortable with them. It's pro-Trump for the most part. That's the public piece. But then when you hear around the Beltway from Republicans that still are really Republicans, and those who've had, dealings with past Republican presidencies or other aspects of the White House or even just international affairs, it's astonishing to them. Four national security advisors in this short amount of time, and 2 interim, 6 different players. That's frightening, especially when you think of how long their counterparts stay in their positions in other nations. Wow.
Yeah. One of the concerns that people raised, including yourself, I believe at the time, was how this would impact Iran and the nuclear weapons agreement. And now there was some discussion after Mr. Bolton left that maybe his departure would mean things will cool down in Iran. Doesn't seem to be the case, right?
Yeah, and here's a great case study on where the president and the national security advisor have to be on the same page. And so the U.S. policy at the moment is full pressure on Iran, and so that means pulling out of the multilateral agreement for monitoring the weapons program. It meant increasing sanctions and the like. And then the Iranian response, of course, is attacking a U.S. drone, attacking ships in the Persian Gulf.
Something they've denied involvement in.
Correct, right, I guess that's clear. But then so you see this action that would then seemingly require a response. And so when you have different policies with the National Security Advisor saying this requires a response and then the president backing off, there's a real impact on how we're approaching Iran in the region, and people see that.
What does it say about what's going on behind the scenes that we know that this has all happened, that there was a plan to retaliate against Iran, and that the president reportedly said about 10 minutes before, we're not going to go ahead and do this?
How different from the policy that we've seen with presidents and their national security advisors in the past, and just in general on this type of a thing. You never indicate ahead of time publicly what you're going to do. I keep thinking of Tony Lake, a national security advisor who was so quiet, so laid back, but was in sync with his president. You think back to, people like Brent Snowcroft, Condoleezza Rice, who became, if you didn't know what a national security advisor was before 9/11, you knew after. So there's Condi Rice. Such different players completely, but it's exactly as the senator just said. The president and the NSA chief have got to be in sync, as much as the president has got to be in sync with his Secretary of State. But the other thing that perhaps is missing here, there's no clear definition of what the game plan is. It's not that there's just not an end game with Iran. There's no game right now at all with the White House. There is no plan as to how to deal with things. The other piece, too, is that when you're dealing, especially in the Middle East, is that if you're indicating you're going to do something and you do not do it, that's remembered very, very well. It's looked at as
a sign of weakness?
Very much so. And I'm no expert exactly in that regard, but with friends in Lebanon, with friends in Israel, that's what we're hearing back right now. Like, wow, what happened there, And there's very, very different perspectives from those 2 different nations, but getting that feel like, wow, what's up with that? Yeah.
Let's have us zoom out for a second here and look at the history of this position. 1947, under President Truman, was the first time the country had a national security advisor meant to advise on as we're talking about foreign options, but also domestic and also military actions. But with this role, is it typically something that is more behind the scenes? We're seeing it play out very publicly now with what's going on with Mr. Bolton. Hard to say.
Oh, yeah. It is typically, and it is typically the coordinator, right? So you're in the White House and you're bringing together the policy recommendations from the Secretary of State, from the Secretary of Defense, and so there is a critical role in terms of the development of the policy, maybe working with Congress and the like, and so that's why you need, honestly, that continuity. I mean, here we are talking about the fourth national security advisor at a time when Iran is becoming more aggressive, and North Korea certainly is continuing its work for weapons development, and we're talking about withdrawing from Afghanistan, where a lot of experts are pointing to a new arms race with Russia, and we don't have that stability that we need in the driver's seat.
When you mentioned a minute ago, Lake, Condoleezza Rice, do you look back at history so far and do you see a particularly effective national security advisor that just sort of leaps to mind for you?
Oh, sure. McGeorge Bundy, just in an historical sense with Kennedy, and probably the player who made it more public. Certainly was the beginning of the television age and all, but Bundy unique in that regard. And Condoleezza Rice, certainly, because post 9/11, but how do you miss Zbigniew Brzezinski on this one? And the battles that went on between he and Cyrus Vance, Kissinger before that, certainly as well. So you've got gigantic names that have been in this role who have perhaps helped to formulate U.S. policy, especially if the president felt that this was not his forte. Carter, not my forte, domestic president, listening to his advisors. But a good point, too, that the senator made in regards to the question that you had asked before, too, is that the job of the NSA chief, beginning in 1947, the concept was to get all of this information, put it together, and make a report to the president. That evolved over the course of the time to what's your opinion right now, gosh golly gee whiz, on the Cuban Missile Crisis or, 9/11, what's happening, what's going on. They've become much larger in their role, much more so.
Robert O'Brien has been tapped by the president to come in to fill this role. Background in hostage negotiation. What's your reaction to the fact that the president picked Mr. O'Brien?
It's useful to have someone who seems more focused on the technocratic part of the job and has the experience. And I don't know him the way that I've overlapped in certain locations with John Bolton, and so I don't really have the insights to say if he'll continue in that vein. But from what we're seeing, he may not be over his skis the way we saw with the previous national security advisor.
I want to ask you both about one piece of news that broke over the weekend regarding the president and discussions with Ukraine that were reported. CIA whistleblower stepped up and said he felt that this was, or he or she felt that this was inappropriate, talking with a world leader about potential things, looking into a potential adversary in the 2020 election. Tony, what do you make of this?
Horrific. Not just local, not just in the body politic of the United States and in this campaign and what's acceptable or what's not acceptable, but what does it say to our allies and our enemies around the planet? You've got a president who, if this is true, is willing to wheel and deal national aspects of security and our relationship with other countries for personal gain, for politics no less. Bad enough if it was personal gain and, making money off it somehow. That's not the case here, it seems. But even this is even worse. That you would do this, that you would reach out to a foreign power and ask for this kind of help. It just doesn't make any sense. In fact, it makes no sense at all. This is the kind of thing you do behind closed doors and you ask of your own quiet people, as long as you're not worried about having a Watergate situation, or let me talking to the wrong folks and putting it in the wrong hands. It's shocking. It's stunning. This one's over the top.
Do you think you would have the same reaction if it were a Democratic president who allegedly did this?
Absolutely so. And even there, too, that would be one where we would be making as much noise. And perhaps there would be someone like myself, a consultant around their president, saying, what the heck are you thinking here? What does this mean in terms of the upcoming campaign or re-election? In this instance, that's something that there doesn't seem to be anyone around the president having that conversation. And we've seen so many other wild, crazy things to this point from the Oval Office that if this were any other president at any other time, this alone would have the House and the Senate, Democrat and Republican, saying, What? And calling for an investigation. What's this all? Or at least, Mr. President or Madam President, come forward and explain this. This just can't stand. There's got to be an explanation for something like this to the media, at least, and to the public.